Dear students, are you ready for the class?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. So this is our first class, and we'll try to give a uh, brief outline on the principle of taxation. Uh, I think from the next class, I will go to the uh, in-depth discussion. Okay. Today is our introductory class. And this is Muhammad Jihaduddin. Is the screen available from your side? Yes, sir. Okay, thank you. Uh, so, you can attend the class by showing your camera or may not. As your discussion, this is Muhammad Jihaduddin. I am serving as Deputy Secretary at the Ministry of Finance, uh, Financial Institutions Division. And previously, I was working at National Board of Revenue uh, at various positions from Assistant Commissioner of Taxes, then Deputy Commissioner of Taxes, and Joint Commissioner of Taxes. After that, I switched to the ministry and joined as Deputy Secretary at the Economic Relations Division under Ministry of Finance, and then at the present position, Deputy Secretary at Financial Institutions Division, which is commonly known as Banking Division under the Ministry of Finance. Okay. Uh, my study uh, was at law from the University of Dhaka, Bachelor of Law honors and Master of Law, that means LLB honors and LLM. Previously, I achieved my HSC from Dhaka Residential Model College, and my SSC was from uh, Brahmanbaria, the Government High School under Kumilla Board. And that time I stood first in the SSC examination and stood 10th in the HSC examination. Uh, my personal interest, uh, uh, as well as I am serving as the Deputy Secretary, but side by side I am working uh, for our national poet, Jatiyo Kavi Kazi Nazrul Islam. I am working on the issue, uh, the philosophy and teachings, overall activities, the literary activities of our national poet. I have some works on him and continuing the works. You can find me at Facebook, YouTube, or Google. I have some books, and especially on income tax law, I have few books. One is titled as Bangladesher I Quran from Bangla Academy, and the other is Income Tax Law of Bangladesh. Income tax, it is in English, published by the Bangla Kotha publications. You can find the books available at any library, or you can collect through online as well. Okay. This is all about in brief um, on me. And now let's we go to our formal session. Okay. So this is the first slide, and here you see some basic information. Uh, we may uh, tell it as the background information on the income tax system of Bangladesh. Historical background. We can say it historical background. And uh, income tax was introduced in the then Indian subcontinent uh, in 1860. In 1860, just after the Liberation War movement of 1857, which we know as the Sipahi Bidroh, but it was the organized war of independence for the India. But after the Liberation War of 1857, the British government took the Indian subcontinent as their colony. Formally, they have taken the Indian subcontinent as the colony. Before that, from 1757 to 1857, in fact, India was ruled by the East India Company. You know the East India Company, and about 100 years they ruled the Indian subcontinent. But after 1857, uh, the British government formally took the charge of the India as their colony. Okay, and after that, uh, they introduced uh, many laws, rules, regulations imported from their country to here. Uh, and the income tax is like that. In 1860, they introduced the income tax, but they enacted the law on income tax in 1922. You see here, the 1922, the Income Tax Act. The Income Tax Act 1922 enacted this law for the then Indian subcontinent. And on 1947, after the partition of India, the two countries created. One is Pakistan and another is India, and both the countries adopted this law within their within their countries. The Income Tax Act means after 1947, India was following this law, and Pakistan was also following this law, the Income Tax Act 1922. Okay, but 1971, when we have become independent, after our independence, we have also taken this law as our law. That means we adopted this law to our independent Bangladesh. That means from 1971, the Income Tax Act 1922 was continuing in our country. Okay, up to 30th June 1984, that law was uh, applicable for Bangladesh. But the present law which we are following, that means the Income Tax Ordinance 1984, it was promulgated and introduced from the first day of July 1984. The Income Tax Ordinance 1984. So, since 1st July 1984, we are following this law, the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. And here you see a difference on a word. In the previous law, last word was act, and uh, for the next law, the last word is ordinance. What is difference between act and ordinance? Can you say? Anybody? What is the difference between act and ordinance? The floor is open for all. Okay. Anybody?
স্যার অ্যাক্ট হচ্ছে স্যার কোনো একটা বিষয় সমগ্র ব্যাপারই হয়, আর অর্ডিন্যান্স তো স্যার মানে কোনো একটা ক্ষেত্রে মানে সংক্ষিপ্ত জিনিসের ক্ষেত্রে হয় সাধারণত, মানে ছোট পরিসরের ক্ষেত্রে।
Thank you for your answer, but the answer is not correct. Okay. The basic difference is uh, uh, you know, the government has three organs. One is legislative, another is executive, And the last one is the judiciary. These three organs we have in the government. Okay. Legislative is for the enacting law. Okay, for the making law. Legislative, the main function of the legislative is to enact law. Okay. And the main function of the executive is to execute the law enacted by the parliament. That means legislative. And the judiciary, when any dispute arises, then one have to go to the judiciary. Okay. But lawmaking, lawmaking agency, as we know, the parliament is the lawmaking agency. The parliament, that means the legislative. Okay. This is the lawmaking agency. But in our constitution, our honorable president has a power to make law. Okay, our honorable president has the power to make law in two circumstances. Number one, if the parliament is not in existence, or number two, if the parliament is not in session. On this, any of the circumstances, if the honorable president thinks that, yeah, any question?
Accountant class.
May I continue? Okay. So, if the parliament is not in existence, or if the parliament is in existence but not in session, the parliament can sit anytime if the president calls the session. But our constitution says that within two sessions of the parliament, there might be maximum 60 days interval. 60 days. Okay, so from one session to another session, that means one meeting to another meeting, there might be maximum 60 days gap. 60. There might be 60 days, maximum 60 days gap. So you think if within this time, that means the parliament is not in session, and that time if any law is required to make, if the president thinks fit to make any law, then he can make the law, and that law is said the ordinance. Okay, that means when the president has made the law, then it is called ordinance. And when the parliament makes the law, it is called act. That means act and ordinance meaning law. Act is law, ordinance is also law, but the word is different because the origin, the birthplace of the law. Okay, if the law is born from the parliament, then it is called act, and if the law is born from the president, then it is called ordinance. Clear? But for the ordinance, there is another condition. The condition is that if the honorable president makes any ordinance, that ordinance must be placed to the parliament on the immediate session of the parliament. Okay, when the parliament sits next, then on the first session, the president must place the ordinance before the parliament, and parliament may desire to continue the ordinance or may stop the ordinance to till that date. Clear? If any ambiguity, you may please ask
parliament can hinder the existence
Any
of
question?
the
Okay.
ordinance.
That means in the simple one. Yeah.
Sir, I mean, the parliament can hinder the existence of the ordinance if it is being put in the session.
Okay. For the ordinance, the president must have to send it to the parliament next parliament session for the approval. Okay. And parliament must approve the ordinance. Parliament cannot reject the ordinance. Clear? Because
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
yeah, this is the special power of the honorable president. Okay, but parliament may decide not to continue the ordinance for further period. Clear? But till that date, parliament has no power to reject the ordinance. Clear?
Yes, sir.
In our case, you see, in 1984, there was no parliament. That time, chief martial law administrator was ruling the country. Chief martial law administrator. That time, Hussain Mahmud Ershad was the CMLA, chief martial law administrator. Okay. He was exercising the power of the honorable president. Clear? And that time, there was no parliament. For this reason, the law he made was named as the ordinance. Clear? But when the parliament resumed, that means new parliament was formed in 1986, you can recall. In 1986, the parliament election was held and the new parliament was constituted. And then all the ordinances, not only this ordinance, all the ordinances he made during his period as the chief martial administrator, all the ordinances he placed to the parliament for approval. And for this case, you know, this is the a very important law for our collection of revenue, direct taxes. Okay, so parliament approved it and decided to continue the law, and this law is continuing till date. Okay, we are following this law for the purpose of income tax. And you see, another, in 1984, the income tax rules 1984 were made. What is the law and rule? A basic difference. Law is made by the parliament or by the honorable president under the power given to him in the constitution. Okay. Law must be enacted or made by the parliament or the honorable president. Okay. But rule, in case of rule will be made by the executive organ of the government. Clear? Rule will be made by the executive body, not by the parliament, not by the honorable president. But there must be a specific provision in the law. Law must allow the executive to make rule. And in that case, the executive body, that means ministry, concerned ministry, will make rule on the basis of the power given to him by the act or ordinance. Clear? So, if we see the income tax ordinance in section 185, you will see the power of making rules. Power is given to the executive body to make rules. Why rules? Rules is nothing but the procedural matters. Okay. As for example, our income tax law says that particular persons have to submit the income tax return. Is it? Under section 75 of the income tax ordinance, we see the specific persons must have to submit the income tax return. Clear? But if anybody comes to you to know what is the income tax return, then what will be your answer? Your answer is given in the rule. Okay. So if we go to the rule, then we will find that return is nothing but a form. A form with some pages. Okay. That means law is giving you the instruction and rule is giving you the way how you will follow the law. Clear?
Is it a complement to income tax ordinance, sir?
Yeah. This is the procedure of the income tax ordinance. Okay, how we will proceed, how we will do the specific work. Okay, this we will find the in the rules, specific rules, and a test you can see in the law. If you find any wording like that, as may be prescribed in some sections of the law, you will find this phrase like quote unquote, as may be prescribed, as may be prescribed. If you see such type of words, then you will be sure that there is specific rule under this section. Clear? As may be prescribed. In the law, you will, if you find the word as may be prescribed, that means you will find a rule in line with this law. Clear? So, up to this discussion, we have learned some specific issues. That means a background of our income tax law up to date, starting from 1860, from now till now. Okay. So the previous law was the Income Tax Act 1922, and this law was applicable to our country till 1984, 30th June 1984. And from 1st July 1984, we have found our present law, that means the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. And in addition with the ordinance, we have found the Income Tax Rules 1984. Clear? So our syllabus is, for our exam purpose and for other purposes, the Income Tax Ordinance 1984 and the Income Tax Rules 1984. In addition to this, we have also to consult the following items. That means number one, Finance Act each year. You know the Finance Act. Finance Act each year. We have to consult the Finance Act. When your exam will be held, before June or after June? March 15th, sir. March 15th. So, in that case, what Finance Act we have to follow?
Finance Act 2022.
2022. Exactly. Thank you. Finance Act 2022. So, about Finance Act, we have to know something. What is Finance Act? And why it is important? If you go to the Constitution, Article 83. Article 83. Okay, please note down Article 83 of the Constitution. Article 83 of the Constitution. On that article, the Constitution says that no tax shall be charged, levied, or collected without an act of parliament. That means, without an act of parliament, no tax shall be charged. So, every year, we must have a finance act. We must have an act which will charge tax. And this is the Finance Act which is charging tax on income. Okay. So, Finance Act is enacted every year by the Parliament for the obligation given under Article 83 of the Constitution. Without Finance Act, no tax shall be charged. For that reason, you can find the income tax rate in the Finance Act, not in the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. Is it clear? Income tax rate. Where we can find income tax rate? Finance Act. Finance Act, not in the Income Tax Ordinance. Okay. For the obligation under Article 83 of the Constitution. Okay, I have to know some information from your side. How many classes you have till date? Sir, for tax, we have only one class. For tax, yes. For income tax?
Yes, sir. For income tax, we have only got one class, and for indirect tax, we have got 4 classes.
So this is the first class on income tax?
No, sir. This is
second class. Second class. Okay. So on your first class, what topic was discussed?
Sir, the topic you are discussing was discussed earlier on Ranjan sir class.
Yeah. What was the topic?
Sir, the topic you are discussing, that was the topic on the class, and he didn't tell us about that in detail, like you are telling.
Yeah. Okay, so I can go on my own way, like this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you. And if you have any difficulties or any ambiguity, you can ask anytime, or you can contact me anytime. I will give you my particulars on the end of the class. Okay. So we are discussing about Finance Act. In each and every year, we will get a new Finance Act, and we have to, as the tax people, we have to discuss, we have to consult the Finance Act. Specifically for the income tax rates. And the other reason why we have to consult with the Finance Act, number one reason is to find out the income tax rates. Okay, to find out the income tax rates. And the second reason, to find out the amendments made in the income tax ordinance. Okay, so for these two reasons, we have to consult the Finance Act each year. Number one, for getting the income tax rates, and the second reason is to getting the amendment brought by the Finance Act.
Yes, assalamu alaikum.
Yes, walaikum assalam.
Sir, একটু আসি হালিম
Sure. Thank you.
একটু আসি যে কথা বলে যাই। Nice to see you, please. আমি আসতেছি, আমিও এতে চলে আসছি।
Thank you. Oh, fine.
ভালো
খুব
আছি
সুন্দর
দাদা।
লাগছে আপনার সাউন্ড ভালো লাগছে খুব।
উপরেই পরিপাটি, ভিতরে অন্তঃসার। Firstly, gratitude to you and also gratefulness to Almighty Allah. My dear students, আমি একটু বলি, ব্যস্ত ছিলাম। ওই জন্য ওই সুবাদে আসতে দেরি হয়ে গেছে। তো এখন যেটা হলো কি যে আজকে সেশনটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ সেশন। এখানে কি দিস ইজ ফার্স্ট ক্লাস, এটাকে আমরা বলি যে ওভারঅল ডিসকাশন সেশন, এক্সাম প্রিপারেটরি সেশন, স্পেশালাইজড সেশন, ইভেন আউটস্ট্যান্ডিং সেশন। তাহলে এই সেশনটা কি হবে? ফুললি ডিটাচ ফ্রম রেগুলার ক্লাস। রেগুলার স্যারেরা যেগুলো আছে ওনারা পড়ান, উইল নট টেক দিস potential guest faculty, our topmost resource persons, existing teacher and guest teachers, not normal teacher. এটা কি যে স্যারকে আমরা রেগুলার ক্লাসে নিয়ে যাব না, বাট রেগুলার ক্লাস যা করে আমরা স্যারকে জানিয়ে দেব। তাহলে বিষয়টা কি হলো? রেগুলার টিচার্স উইল অলসো টিচ, বাট he will inform sir this grid or the contents have been covered, sir ওনার আলোকে এখানে আমাদের এই সেশনটা নিয়ে যান। হ্যাঁ, তো এটাতে কি হবে উপকার? উপকারগুলো কি? you will be known in and outs and all the syllabus and covering totally সিলেবাসটা সোটা হয়ে যায়। আমরা আমাদের রেসপেক্টেড গেস্ট ফ্যাকাল্টিকে 20টা ক্লাস দিয়েছি, যদি প্রয়োজন হয় উইল কভার এন্ড ফর দ্য হোয়াট ফুলফিলমেন্ট অফ দি কোর্সেস। আজ বোঝা গেল যে এই সেশনটা নিতান্ত জরুরি এবং এটা আপনার এই সেকশন এবং আরেক সেকশন, দুই সেকশন মানে আমরা নিয়ে নিয়েছি সি এবং ডিতে। তাহলে যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছি যে মিনিমাম এখানে যে ক্লাস লাগে 14টা এক সেকশনে আমরা ওইভাবে নিয়ে যেতে পারি। So that until further of starting of your exam, this will be continued. এটা আপনাদের জন্য সুবর্ণ সুযোগ যে you are getting regular teacher and also covering from ABC to up to Z and regularizing subjects. আগে audit ছিল, accounting ছিল, এখন also the era and demand of the market and global necessity কি আপনার এই ট্যাক্স। এই জন্য পার্ট অফ পার্সেল অফ দ্য প্রিন্সিপাল অফ ট্যাক্সেশন and next all tax planning and compliance, these two subjects will be the major, even the foundation of this your profession. কাজেই আমাদের পরম শ্রদ্ধ জিয়াদ স্যারের মতো এখানে ওনার নিজের পড়িয়েছেন, ট্যাক্সেশন ছিলেন, এখন অ্যাডমিনে চলে আসছেন। এই জন্য আছেন, কাজেই অনেক একই রূপে বিভিন্ন ধরনের সৌন্দর্য। কাজেই আমি যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছি, দে আর অ্যাকচুয়ালি দ্য বেসিক ইভেন গভর্নমেন্ট সিনিয়র অফিসিয়ালস। ওকে, কাজেই নিজের পরিচয় দিয়েছেন কিনা, ব্যাকগ্রাউন্ড ইজ ভেরি গুড অ্যাচিভমেন্ট। এসএসসি ইন্টারে প্লেসধারী ফার্স্ট অফ কুমিল্লা বোর্ড, next Dhaka, ঢাকাতে এসে সেকেন্ড পজিশন, পজিশন। এই জন্য যেটা বলতে চাচ্ছি, you receive very talented guy, but it will be also helpful even effective that times will when you will receive the contribution of this teacher. তাহলে চারটা জিনিস বলে গেলাম শর্টে। I will also upsell and cut my such conversations, even introduction. তাহলে চারটা জিনিস বললাম। এক হচ্ছে দিস ইজ স্পেশালাইজ সেশন। আপনি এই স্যারের আমাদের সম্মানিত গেস্ট টিচারের ইয়েটা রেগুলারে নিয়ে যাবেন না, বলার দরকার নাই, বাট রেগুলার গুলো কভার করে নেবেন টোটালি সাবজেক্ট। তাহলে কি হলো, এটার সাথে আপনার ট্যাক্স প্ল্যানিংটা প্রফেশনাল হয়ে গেল, and it will be very helpful. I sincerely believe if you just to go through and also continue and you will success, my dear, no problem. এক। দুই নম্বর যেটা বললাম, as and when required, the class synopsis, even others, tips and further the session papers, additional, if DGR teacher, that means our guest faculty will provide, no hesitant. কাজে আপনাদের এই বিষয়ে মোটেও চিন্তার কারণ নেই, কারণ ইটস এ টিনি সাবজেক্ট ফর হিম। যিনি বই লেখেন, যিনি আপনার এইগুলোর সিলেবাসের ইয়েতে আমাদের জড়িত, তার কাছে এটা কিছুই না। এই জন্য দ্বিতীয়ত গেল যে আপনি যখন যা প্রয়োজন হবে সারিয়ে দিবেন এবং কমিউনিকেশন রাখবেন। থার্ড যেটা হলো যে ইউ শুড হ্যাভ টু রেসপন্সিভ ইন দ্য সেশন। কথা বলবেন এমনি, উনি অত্যন্ত মাইক এবং বলে যে ভেরি কর্ডিয়াল, কাজে অসুবিধা হওয়ার কথা না। And when I also entered here just to pay here with a good presentation and এটাতে বলে যে লাভলি অ্যান্ড ফ্রেন্ডলি অফ দ্য ডেমনস্ট্রেশন। 3 গেল, কথাবার্তা বলবেন, নিয়ে করবেন। 4 যেটা হলো আপনার যা বুঝেন না, যেটা একদম সাবলীল ভাবে অবলীল ভাবে করাবে। বাংলা আরো কঠিন, ইংরেজিতে বলে উইদাউট হেজিটেশন ইউ উইল অলসো টক অ্যান্ড প্রোভাইড টু ইউর অনারেবল টিচার্স। এই আর 5 নম্বর হলো যে শিডিউল যখন হবে আমরা দেব। আজকে একটা দিলাম, এরপর ডবল ক্লাস দেওয়া হবে। এর জন্য রানিং করবে তাই আপনার সেখানে 7 দিন নেব, আরেক সেশনে 7 দিন নেব, ডবল ক্লাস করে দেওয়া হবে। এবং এটা কতক্ষণ চলবে? আনটিল ফার্দার বিফোর ইউর অ্যাপিয়ারিং অ্যাট দ্য এক্সাম। এই জন্য মার্চের 15 পর্যন্ত যাবেই। তো এই পর্যন্ত। আর আমি যখন আসবো সব সমস্যার সমাধান হয়ে যাবে মনে হয়, তখন সমস্যা নাই। আর সময় ক্ষেপণ না করি, স্যারকে অনেক ধন্যবাদ। আর কি বলে কথা হবে। আর যদি কোনো কিছু থাকে ফার্দার অ্যাডভাইস টু মি স্যার, অর
No, no, thank you for your nice presentation and for your kind presence. Huh?
নো স্যার।
Thank you so much, sir.
আই সিনসিয়ারলি সরি ফর মেকিং
No, no, thank you.
আরো 3টা জায়গায় ছিলাম, একটা মিটিং এ ঢুকেছিলাম।
Thank you. We have become enlightened with your kind presence.
ইয়ে থাকলো। আর ছাত্রদের বলবো যে যত ইয়ে আছে গ্রুপে আপনারা ইউ উইল অলসো ইনভাইট অল দ্য স্টুডেন্টস, যত ক্লাসটা না ছুটে যায়। তাদের সাথে আলাপ করে নিব, আমরা অ্যাডভান্স রুটিন দিয়ে দেবো এবং এরপরে চেষ্টা করব ডবল ক্লাস দেওয়ার জন্য। তো থ্যাংক ইউ ভেরি মাচ। মে আল্লাহ ব্লেস আস and grant our efforts. আল্লাহ।
Thank you so much. Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম। থ্যাংক ইউ। ছাত্র ছাত্রী ভাই বোনেরা বিদায় নিলাম। আল্লাহ হাফেজ।
Thank you.
আসসালামু আলাইকুম।
So, my dear students, am I giving you much trouble, or is it enjoyable or not?
And it is enjoyable.
Enjoyable. Thank you, thank you. In my experience, when I was working at NBR, I have about 17 years experiences in the taxation service. I experienced that your people, your learned people, that means chartered accountant, FCA, I believed that you must have, you will become obviously experts on your profession, I believe. But side by side, if you can get the required knowledge on the legal background, then it will be excellent for you all. Because the taxation is the combination of two subjects. This is my assumption, my findings. One is accounting and another is the law. So you must have proper knowledge on the two subjects. You have to see the subject on the two angles. One is from the legal angle and another is from the accounting angle. And if you can combine two angles within your profession, then you will be obviously an excellent professional. Okay, so for this reason, from the legal side, I believe I can give you much thing as the student of law and as the teacher of law. I can give you, I can add some values to you. Okay, so I request you, you are sincere, obviously you all are sincere, and you all are the young brilliants of our country. So I request you all to maintain uh, your commitment, your punctuality to the class. Okay, then you will be enlightened, I think. You will be enriched. Okay, so we can move to the next issue. I can see here a message in the chat box. Wow, from our management. Blessed to all by Alim Bhai. Okay, thank you. So we are talking about the Finance Act, and I think you are clear on the Finance Act. Can you say when the Finance Act passed by the Parliament, in which time, particularly in which month?
June, July.
June, yeah, not July, June.
June.
Because we have the obligation to make the Finance Act by the June, as the June is our ending month of the financial year, and the July is our starting month of the financial year. So we have to have the Finance Act by the June. For this reason, every year we see the budget session is held in the Parliament at the June, and the Finance Act is enacted by the Parliament by the June. Okay, June. So we have to consult with the Finance Act, especially for two reasons. Can you tell me the two reasons I have told earlier? Why we have to consult the Finance Act? Number one, for getting the
Income tax rate.
income tax rates. Yeah, thank you. And the next reason?
New amendment.
Yeah, thank you. But if we see the Finance Act not only deals with the income tax ordinance, you see, the Finance Act also deals with the Customs Act, Value Added Tax Act, and the Registration Act, and also the Stamp Act. So, the subject matter of the Finance Act is, if we say again, number one, the Income Tax Ordinance, number two, the Customs Act, number three, the Value Added Tax, number four, the Registration Act, number five, the Stamp Act. All these acts, if any amendment is required on any of these laws or acts, then that amendment normally we can see in the Finance Act. Why? Because these amendments involved the financial issues. As for example, the Stamp Act. By the Stamp Act, government is earning revenue. Yeah? And by the Registration Act, government is also earning revenue. If you go for the registration of any of your property, then the government will get some money from you. And the Customs Act, obviously the revenue related law, and the Value Added Tax Act, obviously the revenue law. So, all these law as deal with the financial matters. So, if any amendment is required on any of these law, normally we can find the amendment of this law in the Finance Act. Okay, so you can find any of the Finance Act from the NBR website. After our 2 days class, you can search the NBR website and you will find the Finance Act, the latest Finance Act 2022, and I request you to go through the Finance Act. Okay, then you will get much more idea about the Finance Act. Clear? And the next issue is the SRO. SRO means Statutory Regulatory Order. These all our syllabus. Number one, I am again repeating, Income Tax Ordinance 1984, then the Income Tax Rules 1984, then the Finance Act each year. Latest year is 2022. And the next one is the SRO, Statutory Regulatory Order. What is SRO? SRO is the order issued by the executive organ of the government. Okay, can you tell me who is the head of the executive in our country? Who is the head of the executive? Prime Minister. Prime Minister is the head of the executive. Who is the head of the legislative? Speaker. Speaker is the head of the legislative. And who is the head of the judiciary? This question is for you. Who is the head of the judiciary? Anybody?
No, sir.
Okay. Chief Justice. Chief Justice of what? Chief Justice of?
Supreme Court.
No. This wrong. Generally, you can find from any corner of the people. If you ask anybody, he may say you the Chief Justice of the Bangladesh Supreme Court. No, Chief Justice of Bangladesh. When he is the head of the judiciary, then he will be said as the Chief Justice of Bangladesh. And when he is the head of the Supreme Court, that means when he sits for administering justice, when he sits at his judicial chair, then he is told as the Chief Justice of Bangladesh Supreme Court. But when he is the head of the judiciary, he is known as the Chief Justice of Bangladesh. Clear? So, we have come to know 3 points. Number 1, head of the legislative, speaker. Head of the executive, prime minister. Head of the judiciary, Chief Justice of Bangladesh. Clear? Okay. Now, SRO, who can issue SRO? SRO can issue by the executive. That means by the ministry. By the ministry. You know, the activities of the executive organ of the government is divided into specific ministries. Clear? So, sometimes the ministry can issue order as the law. This order is treated as the law. Okay. Come to the point. If we go through the income tax ordinance, section 44, you just go to section 44. 44, not now, after the class. Okay, just note down. Section 44. In the section 44 of the income tax ordinance, you see the section says that the government may do so and so. The government may. This is the power given to the executive body to make order which have the power as the law. You see, the income tax rates and income tax pattern of the country. But if the government comes to a decision that government is willing to give exemption, tax exemption to a particular sector, to to a particular people, to a particular organization. That can be done by the government. Government means the executive body. The parliament has given the power to the government to give exemption to anybody, to any organization, to any sector. The government may give tax exemption. How? By issuing an order. That order is called the SRO. Clear? So you have to go through SRO also. And where you can find SRO? You can find some SROs from the NBR website. SRO. You just go through the website of NBR and you will see SRO. A menu like SRO. Okay. So income tax related SRO, there are lots of SRO. So you have to, as the tax student, you have to go through the SRO also, because you have to know the sector which are enjoying the tax exemption, which are enjoying the reduced tax rates. Clear? And if you don't know the exemption or reduced tax rate, you may make error in your math. Okay. So you can go through the NBR website, but from the NBR website, you cannot find all the SRO. So you can collect a book on SRO. The book are available in front of NBR. You know the NBR building at Shagun Bagicha. Okay. You can get book on SRO. And you will be very amazed and interested to find lots of areas which are enjoying tax exemption. Clear? So, as the student of taxation, we have to consult with SR also. So, our syllabus is expanding. Number one, Income Tax Ordinance 1984. Number two, Income Tax Rules 1984. Then Finance Act and SRO. Clear? And the last one is the clarification from NBR. Clarification from NBR. You can see from the income tax ordinance that the NBR has the power. NBR has the power to give clarification on any issue of the tax related issue. Okay. NBR can make clarification. So NBR clarification is also applicable for us. We have to follow the clarification given by the NBR on any particular issue. So from the very beginning of the NBR till date, NBR has given many clarification, particularly in every year. NBR issue, NBR usually in each year after the budget, after the passing of the Income Tax Act, Finance Act, after the passing of the Finance Act, NBR usually issues clarification on the Finance Act, just to explain the amendments brought by the Finance Act, and which is known as the Poripatra. Each year, you will find the Poripatra. So, just to go through the NBR website, you will find the Poripatra each and every year. So, for this year, for your exam purpose, you have to follow the Poripatra 2022. Okay, so from the NBR website, you can download the Finance Act 2022 and the Poripatra 2022. Then you will get many information from the Finance Act and from the Poripatra. Clear? So this is all about our syllabus in brief. We can move to the next slide. Now important terms. Okay, before going to this slide, I want to share with you some other basic concepts on taxation. All of you know, tax can be divided into two categories, two types. There are basically two types of taxes. Number one, direct tax, and number two, indirect tax. You know, direct tax and indirect tax. Okay, which is direct tax? Can anybody share which is direct tax?
Sir, when in the intake and incidence of tax is on the same person or institution, is called direct tax.
Yeah. Example?
Sir, income tax.
Yeah. Another example?
Company income tax or duty. Oh no, sorry, it's indirect tax. Sorry, indirect tax. Income tax or
Gift tax?
yeah, sir, gift tax.
Travel tax?
Yes, sir, travel tax.
Yeah. Wealth tax also, but we have no wealth tax presently. But wealth tax also a kind of direct tax. Another test for direct tax is this tax cannot be shifted to anybody else. Tax burden cannot be shifted to anybody else. Yeah. And indirect tax, just reverse. Indirect tax. Tax burden is shifted to other party. For the indirect tax, tax burden is shifted to the other party. Government is collecting tax, as for example, from the business people, but the businessman is collecting from the customer. This is called indirect tax. As for example, value-added tax. Value-added tax is the kind of indirect tax. Okay, for our brainstorming, can we say some advantages of direct tax? Anybody can share. What are the advantages of direct tax?
Sir, here the possibility of tax evasion is less than compared to indirect tax.
No, I cannot agree. This is for the indirect tax. But for the direct tax, uh, the first advantage is, first of all, you have to know why tax is being collected by the government. Why tax is important for the government? Number one, obviously for the collection of revenue, but there is another important reason for the imposition of tax. Can you say, anybody say, can you say?
So
For development of a country. No. If we go through our constitution, you can see the fundamental principle of state policy. What are the fundamental principles of state policy? What is the obligation of the state to the citizen of the country? You can think yourself. What is the obligation of your parents to you? To ensure social and economic justice. Okay. To ensure social and economic justice among the citizens is the prime commitment of the state. Okay. Equal treatment for everyone, equality for everyone, uh, economic justice for all. Okay. So this economic justice is possible by the direct tax, because in the direct tax, the ability is the basis for paying tax. If you have the ability, ensure the benefit of the people who are, who needs support from the government. So, government is taking money from the people who have the ability to give the money to the people to make them able to come forward. Okay, and by this way, government will make the equality among the people. Okay, it is possible by the direct tax. But so this is the advantage of direct tax, because by the imposition of direct tax, government can ensure the economic justice among the citizen. Okay, but the disadvantage for the direct tax is the collection of direct tax is not simple, so easy. Collection of direct tax is not easy for the government, because as you know, the burden cannot be shifted to anybody else. The burden is fallen on the taxpayer directly. So uh, it is not unlikely for the taxpayer to avoid to make way to avoid tax, because the burden falls upon him directly and he cannot shift the burden. So tax evasion and is very much common trend in the direct tax. Okay, and tax collection is not easy, and you can say the practical aspect of the direct tax, that after a year you are going to submit your tax return. Is it? After a year you are going to submit your tax return. That means after your income year, after your income year, you are supposed to pay your tax. But when you are going to pay your tax, it might happen that you have no money with you. Okay. Uh, but in case of indirect tax is collected instantly. Example, for you can see the value-added tax. Suppose you have gone to a fast food shop and you took something, and when you are paying bill, you are paying also the VAT. So collection of VAT is instantly possible, and instantly payment is made. So this is easy for the government to collect tax from the indirect taxes, as the tax is being paid instantly. But the disadvantage of the indirect tax, number one, the major disadvantage is ability is not the basis of the paying VAT or indirect tax. Ability is not being considered in the indirect taxes. Your consumption is the basis. Suppose a rich man is going to buy 1 kg sweet, and a rickshaw puller also is going to buy 1 kg sweet. The government will collect VAT, same VAT, from the rich people and from the rickshaw puller. Clear? Equal treatment. But this equal treatment is not desirable, because this equal treatment will make the gap between poor and the rich much and much. Okay, so the commitment of the government or the state is to ensure the equality among all the citizens of the country is not possible by imposing indirect taxes. This gap will be increased. This gap will be increased day by day in case of imposing indirect taxes. So this is the disadvantage of indirect tax. But tax collection is easy in case of indirect tax. Are you clear? Collection of tax is easy in case of direct tax or indirect tax. Which one is correct?
Indirect tax.
Indirect tax. Okay. equality, that means economic justice. Yeah. Summa Jahira uh, has given a message. Fine, excellent point. Minimize income inequality. To minimize income inequality, possible. In which case? By indirect tax or by direct tax?
Direct tax. Indirect tax.
Direct tax. Direct tax. Direct tax can minimize income inequality. Because here, the person having the ability will have to pay tax. And the person having no ability, they are not required to pay tax. So, direct tax, if you see the developed countries, in all the developed countries, tax means the direct tax. Okay, and now we are going to reach the Vision 2041. That means we are going to become a developed country. So we have to increase our contribution to the GDP of the direct tax. Can you say anyone what is the tax GDP ratio in Bangladesh? That means the contribution of direct tax to the gross domestic product GDP. What is the condition of contribution of tax GDP ratio in our country? This is the lowest
7%.
No. This is the lowest one among the globe. Our tax GDP ratio is the lowest one. You just ask your Google, and Google will give you the answer. Okay.
7.9%, sir.
Yeah. So Summa Jahira is not correct here. Okay, not 85% is not correct. Okay. Our tax GDP ratio is very, very poor. So we have to do a lot. We have to do a lot. We have to do a lot to increase the contribution of direct taxes to our GDP. Okay. Thank you. So we have learned that there are two types of tax. Number one, direct tax. Number two, indirect tax. Okay, and our session is on the direct tax. And the major item of direct tax is the income tax. Income tax means the tax on income. The tax on income. Okay. Now come to some important terms. Number one, SSC. SSC. Okay. If you see the section 2 of the income tax ordinance, you can find various terms used in the income tax ordinance 1984. So, from section 2 of the income tax ordinance, we have to read some important terms which is being used, frequently used in the income tax law. Okay. Number one, SSC. SSC means, in simple word, SSC means the taxpayer. In the simple word, SSC means the taxpayer. But in the law, SSC, the term SSC has been defined in another way, covering both the taxpayer and not the taxpayer. Both are SSC. How? If you see section 2, clause 7, clause 7 of section 2, you can find that SSC means a person. SSC means a person by whom tax or any sum of money is payable under the Income Tax Ordinance 1984 and also includes. So, there are two, there are some people, some persons who are not paying tax, but they are also SSC. Who they are? Just see clause 7 of the section 2. Clause 7 of the section 2. You can see here, number 1, if any action has been taken towards anybody under the Income Tax Ordinance 1984, he will be treated as the SSC, though he is not paying tax. As for example, if any notice comes to you, if any notice comes to you from the tax office saying that why you are not submitting your tax return, we have the information that you are earning or you are doing a job, so why you are not submitting your income tax return? From that time, you will be treated as the SSC. That means, number 1, when any action has been taken in case of anybody under the income tax ordinance, that person will be treated as the SSC. Clear? Number 2, from section 75, you will see some persons who have to submit their income tax return because of some fulfilling some criteria. As for example, he has the TIN. You know TIN? Taxpayers Identification Number. If anybody has the TIN, he will have to submit the income tax return. That means he is the SSC. Clear? He may not pay tax, but he will have to submit the income tax return because he has the TIN. So anybody has the TIN, we will have to submit the income tax return. He will be treated as the SSC. Clear? So I will request you just go through clause 7 of section 2 and find the definition of SSC, and if you find any difficulties, then we will discuss in our next class regarding the SSC. Okay? For today, just remember, SSC means both the taxpayer and not the taxpayer. Okay? That means the persons who are required to submit their income tax return, all of them are not paying tax. The tax will be payable only if he has the income above the tax limit, tax exempted limit. For current tax rate, if anybody has the income above 3 lakh for the male or above 3,50,000 for the female, then he or she will have to pay tax. Otherwise, they have to submit their income tax return, not need to pay tax. Clear? But they are SSC. So all the SSC, all the SSCs are not taxpayer, but all the taxpayers are SSC. Clear? Any problem or any difficulties regarding SSC?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Sir, one question, sir. What about minimum tax?
Okay. Minimum tax means we can find the term minimum tax in 2 places. Number 1, in the in the Finance Act and in the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. Okay. There are 2 places where we can find the this phrase, minimum tax. from the income tax ordinance 1984, you please note down a section 82C, section 82C, subsection 4. Section 82C, subsection 4. After the class, you just see the section 82C. Okay, 82C, subsection 4. You can find the minimum tax there. Okay, number one. Number two, go through the Finance Act
2022. On the last portion of the Finance Act, you can see the tax rate there. And in the Finance Act, you can see the minimum tax. Okay. And what are saying in the Income Tax Ordinance or in the Finance Act? First, in the Finance Act,
you can see the minimum tax applicable for the, just listen, minimum tax applicable for the individual SSC, for the farm, for the Hindu undivided family, and for the association of persons. Okay, for these types of SSC, the minimum tax will be 5,000 or 4,000 or 3,000 on the basis of their location. If their income exceeds taka 3 lakh, or for the female, if the income, total income exceeds taka 3,50,000, then he or she must have to pay the minimum tax on the basis of his or her location. If the location is within the Dhaka South City Corporation, Dhaka North City Corporation, or Chattogram City Corporation, then the minimum tax will be 5,000 taka. Okay. And if the location is in other city corporations, then the minimum tax will be 4,000 taka. And if the location is any other places other than the city corporation area, then the minimum tax will be 3,000 taka. Okay, this is one side of the minimum tax. Clear? Applicable for the individual, partnership firm, Hindu undivided family, and association of persons. But there is another reference of minimum tax in the section 82C, as I have told you. What is this? This minimum tax is applicable only on the business, only on the, if you say in other words, applicable for the company, for the partnership firm having a particular turnover, which you will see in the section 82C, subsection 4. Okay, that means there are some criteria. If you have fallen under this criteria, then you will have to pay minimum tax on the basis of your turnover. This tax, we can also say the turnover tax, but formally this is not turnover tax, this is income tax. Okay, I can give you an example, then it will be clear for you. Suppose ABC Limited. ABC Limited is a company, and the net income of the ABC Limited company is 1 lakh taka, net income. Clear? And the total turnover of the company is, suppose, 10 crore taka. Total turnover. is 10 crore. But the net income is 1 lakh taka. Clear? So, what will be the tax for the company, for the ABC Limited company? What will be the tax? Can you write down? Just write down the words ABC Limited Company. ABC Limited Company, the net income or total income is 1 lakh taka, but the turnover is 10 crore taka. 10 crore taka for the year ended on 30th June 2022. ABC Limited Company net income 1 lakh taka and turnover 10 crore taka. 10 crore taka. So what will be the tax? What will be the tax of ABC Limited Company? What will be the tax? Who can say? Number one, you have to calculate tax on the basis of its total income. Clear? So the total income is 1 lakh taka. What will be the tax? You have to know the tax rate of the company. What is the tax rate of the company?
Sir, different company has different tax slabs.
Okay, we can say it any type of company. Just general company.
37.5 or 35%.
35. We can take it 35%. Okay. So income tax with 35% of 1 lakh. That means 35,000 taka. Okay. But this is not the end. You have to put the another rate on the turnover. That rate you will find in section 82C, subsection 4. What is the rate? 0.6%. 0.6. Okay. So 0.6% of 10 crore. What is the result? You can also see the chat box I am doing. Based on total income, that means
60,000.
60,000.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So first we take the tax on total income. That means 35% of 1 lakh is equal to 35,000. And then tax on turnover. Turnover. That means turnover 10 crore. 10 crore means 00. And the rate 0.6%. That means 60,000. Is it? 60,000. So you can see here the two amounts of tax. Number one, 35,000 and number two, 60,000. So what will be the minimum tax? Minimum tax will be the 60,000.
Sir, which is better?
Yeah, which is the higher? Okay, will be 60,000. Is higher, huh? Yes, higher. Okay, please see the chat box. Tax on total income 35,000. Tax on turnover 60,000. The law says that the minimum tax will be the higher of the two amounts. You have to find out the tax on income and tax on the turnover. And which one is the higher will be the minimum tax applicable for that company. Clear?
Sir, for individual, what will be happen?
Okay, for individual there is another provision. In that case, we can see the particular provision of law. I am sharing with you. Then you will find the answer. Okay, just give me a minute. We are going to the specific provision of law, and we'll see the tax rate. Clear? Just
Okay, sir.
1 minute. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we are going to open the Income Tax Ordinance 1984. Okay, we'll go to section 82C. 82C. If you have the clear idea on the law, you can solve any problem. Okay, you see the minimum tax 82C. Okay, minimum tax. Okay, 82C subsection 1. We are going to subsection 4. You see subsection 4? Yeah. Okay. Just I'm reading out subsection 4. You see, subject to the provision of subsection 5, minimum tax for individual. You can find your answer here. For individual, a firm or a company shall be the following. Okay. The SSC being the individual having gross receipt taka 3 crore or more. So, this provision will be applicable for the individual SSC only in the case having his total turnover taka 3 crore or more. Clear? If an individual SSC has the gross receipt of taka 3 crore or more, in that case, this provision is applicable for the individual, otherwise not. Clear?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And for the partnership firm, having gross receipt of more than 50 lakh. For the partnership firm, if the firm has turnover above 50 lakh, then you have to calculate this way. Okay. But for the company, for every company, you have to follow this formula for every kind of company. First, you will have to calculate tax on the income, and then you have to calculate tax on the turnover. Clear? For every company. But for the individual, you just have to look whether he has the gross receipt above 3 crore or not. If the gross receipt is above 3 crore, then you will calculate these two rates. And for the partnership firm, you just see what is the gross receipt of the firm. If you see that the gross receipt of the firm is above 50 lakh taka, then you have to find out the two amounts of tax. Number one, tax on income. And number two, tax on the turnover. Clear? Then, which one is the higher will be the minimum tax for the firm or the individual or the company. Yeah. So, minimum tax, the provision of minimum tax is very much important for you. The provision of minimum tax. And we will have conduct another class, particularly on the minimum tax. Clear? For the today, I I think we have to stop at this stage because this is the first class. Okay, so you just after the class you will go through the sections I have cited. I have told you just go through the sections, go through the Paripatra, go through the income tax ordinance, the relevant sections, okay, and just memorize the points discussed in the class, okay, and I think it will be helpful for you. And you will find here the tax rate, turnover tax rate. You see the 0.6%, 6. Any other case 0.6%. Okay, we have applied in the case of company. Is it?
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thank you. So for today, we can stop here. Wishing you all the best.
Sir, will the slide be shared with us?
Yeah, sure. When and how? Right.
Sir,
I can send it to Mr. Halim Bhai also to give you all,
yes, sir, that would be better, sir.
or chat box. They share.
Yes, sir, you
So
can
please can you share it in our prefect class representative.
Okay. So you can take my email address. I'm sharing with you the chat box. Okay.
Okay, sir.
You can take it. Jahed@gmail.com. Okay. You just class captain is requested to give me a mail, and I will reply you.
I am typing in chat box, sir.
Yeah. Jahed, I have sent you. Okay. Jahed@gmail.com. You just give me a mail, then I will share with you today's presentation. And after today's class, we'll request you, all of you.
I sent my mail, sir.
Yeah, you also already sent. Okay. Just a minute. Just a minute. Okay.
Maisha Jaman, please unmute.
Just a minute. I will share with you some other information. Okay. Just please see the chat box. And I have given you my YouTube link. Okay. There you will not find any tax related issue. You will find the Nazrul and like other issue. Okay. And I request you to join my channel. Okay. Thank you all and have a good night. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum, sir.
Alaikum assalam.